today we're going to be covering a wonderful topic of the 5 short form video formats that every RIA should master. We're going through the types of content that you can always stick to, the different formats that you want to utilize to really provide a full picture of your brand as a whole, whether it be your personal brand or your firm as an entire entity. And these are formats that are tried and true. They've been used throughout the beginning and inception of content creation, and they will continue to stay here. So if you can master these 5, you will be set. You won't run out of content ideas, and you'll feel comfortable, confident, and you'll resonate with your audience. I'm going to share with you scripting frameworks that are also tried and true, essentially how most video content is created, and walk through how you can start implementing them. I'll give you a downloadable template, again, that's plug and play at the end of this so that you can just fill in your content pieces, your talking points, and get started with recording right away. And now for the bulk of this is the 5 short form video formats that I'm going to be covering. So first up, we have educational explainers. Then we have client success stories, myth busting, hypothetical scenarios, market commentary, and I'm actually going to give you guys a bonus 6th format here at the end. This is kind of a broad guideline on how much you should be allocating in terms of your video content mix to the content you're posting. So the biggest one that's going to be your bread and butter is educational explainers at 40%. Then you go into hypothetical scenarios at 20%, client success stories at 15%, myth busting at 10%, market commentary at 10%, and the bonus 6th format that we'll go over is only going to account for about 5%, but I will say I believe that this 5% is what's extremely powerful and will help bring your content and your brand to life and truly land and stick with your potential clients. So first up, we have educational explainers. Like I mentioned, this will be about 40% of your content mix. And this is essentially teaching financial concepts, processes, and strategies in simple terms. One example that you can use is how 401k rollovers work for new retirees. Now, again, this concept is obviously pretty broad, and 401k rollovers has an endless list of criteria, requirements, and stipulations within it. And so a recommendation here is even if a concept is really complex, you want to break it down into simpler terms and simpler pieces. And if you really do need more than one video, I highly recommend creating a series. For example, a part 1 of 5 breaking down 401k rollovers, part 2 of 5, and continuously build on the complex topic by having each individual video being approachable and palatable. A second example here is Roth conversion strategies for high earners that are 60 plus. Now, what you'll notice is each of these topics, you're starting to qualify your audience with the title, with the topic. The first one was for new retirees. The second one is for high earners that are 60 plus. And so your audience will filter themselves out based on if they fit or if they don't fit. Last example here is breaking down the blended retirement system, the BRS, for veterans. This is a retirement policy and retirement system specific to veterans. And this leads me into the pro tip when it comes to educational explainer videos. The more niche, the better. Okay? This is where you're really going to stand out and differentiate yourself from your competitors. As you have probably noticed, the amount of financial advice that's coming out from these content creators or influencers that don't necessarily have the experience and or pedigree that you have built, they're at the forefront of reaching your audience, and a lot of the content they cover is general. For example, if we look back at that first example, this is a very general statement. 401k rollovers, most people are familiar with 401ks, and new retirees is essentially everybody, right? But if you look at the third example, blended retirement system for veterans, you are really honing in on a niche, right? This is veteran specific. And so if you can start differentiating your content and your firm by focusing in on a specific niche, you'll really speak to and resonate with that specific audience, and you'll become the go-to advisor, the go-to firm for your niche. So that's the pro tip here. In terms of compliance tips, when you get to educational explainers, the first thing is, again, you want to lean on educational and fact-based. This is not the place where you want to start sharing your opinions or, thoughts on where things could be. You really want to lean on education and make sure you're fact driven. That's what's going to build that trust with your audience, because you are the liaison between the complex financial topics and their understanding of them and how they might be able to implement it or consider it in their retirement planning. You always want to cite sources when applicable. And I quoted here IRS and SSA.gov specifically because those are the universal, this is what we need to abide by, and they're always updating their documentation. I always tell people, yes, you might find sources, for example, from Fidelity, Charles Schwab, other competitors. The issue with citing them is they might be wrong. They might have an incorrect reference, but more than that is you're doing free marketing for them. If you cite a source from a competitor, an audience member that watches your content and looks at the references, they might just go to that competitor's website and work with them instead of you. So rather than doing free marketing for your competitors, stick to the concrete fact-based areas where they have proper documentation and it's fully detailed, which are the government-powered websites. And lastly, you should always avoid you should or specific advice. And I think that's pretty standard across all content when it comes to your industry and financial services, wealth management, financial advising, and planning. So that's another thing you want to keep in mind. Now, moving on, we're going to go to the second format for hypothetical scenarios. This is going to cover 20% of your content mix. And this is essentially walking through hypothetical situations to showcase your methodology. The point of these are not necessarily to showcase a specific result, but more so your methodology, your process, your strategy, how you might go about a specific scenario. Because at that point, the audience will be able to understand how you think, what you'll actually do and what you could do for them, as well as a potential result that might come from it. The first example here is a tech founder came to me paying $400,000 a year in taxes. Here's how we discuss potentially reducing it. Now, again, you're not focusing on specifics. You're saying, hey, in this scenario where a tech founder came to me with $400,000 in taxes, this is how we would kind of approach it, how we would break it down, the initial questions we would be asking, the different buckets that we would be looking at for potential strategies to reduce those taxes. And again, you want to be anonymous. You don't want to focus on the $400,000 a year to say that, we'll save you X amount if you work with us. That's not the point here. And those are generally compliance red flags. What you really want to do here again is focus on the methodology, your process. Another example here is, say, for example, you're considering retiring at 73 versus working a year later or one more year. Here's how it might impact your required minimum distributions. This is your opportunity to share this hypothetical scenario that likely applies to a lot of individuals, and then walk through the different processes, the different strategies you might think through and discuss to really understand if, for one specific scenario, taking the RMDs at 73 makes sense, or at 74, or working later, and what those scenarios are. And lastly, another hypothetical scenario could be if you passed away without a trust. This is what the probate process could look like. Again, you're not saying specifically, hey, if you pass away and you don't have a trust, this is exactly what your probate process is going to look like. You're not saying it's a guarantee that this is the only way. You're saying this is something that could happen if this is the scenario that you find yourself in, or if someone finds themselves in. And so when it comes to the pro tip for hypothetical scenarios, don't be afraid to dive deep. The reason why you shouldn't be afraid to go deep is because the deeper you go, the more expertise you're able to showcase and convey to the audience. And this might be a longer video. It might be difficult to fit this all into 30 or 90 seconds. So rather than going into details on each step of your process, just outline your process and different things that you might consider. And the deeper you go, the higher likelihood that there's going to be some resonance. And also it's going to showcase your expertise a lot more. In terms of compliance tips here, You want to clearly state that the situation is hypothetical. You want to cite your sources. You're going to notice a common theme with citing sources. And then lastly, you always want to include disclosures stating that there are no guarantees and that individuals should really consult their advisors before they take any action or any step. Obviously, every scenario is different. There's different nuances and complexities. And so you're not saying that you are the all-knowing advisor, that this is exactly what you should do or what would happen in these scenarios. So definitely encourage people to talk to their actual advisor who understands their specific scenario. Next, we're going to client success stories. This is only going to be about 15%, primarily because you don't want to become the firm that only talks about your wins. The wins are great, they're fantastic, but you want to provide value to your audience. It's not just about showboating and gloating and sharing, oh, how great we are. Again, you really want to enter in with education, which is why the educational explainers are 40%, whereas client success stories are at the 15% mark. So as you can imagine, this is where you share results from working with your clients, obviously with permission and anonymized. A couple examples here is how we helped a retiring executive save $200,000 in taxes. Again, similar to the hypothetical scenarios, you're outlining a specific scenario, but rather than it being hypothetical, you're referencing an actual case study, an actual testimonial, something that you and your firm have done for a client. Another example is how we enabled a family office to navigate wealth transfer over 3 generations. Obviously, wealth transfer is extremely difficult. To have done that for somebody, for a client of yours over 3 generations, is a wonderful topic, something that's really powerful, something that's worth sharing with your audience, your current clients, as well as prospective clients that may have a family office and are interested in wealth transfer. The last, third, final example here is how we helped a couple purchase their dream home without derailing their retirement plan. And if you're able to do that, that's pulling on some of the more emotional aspects of financial planning and showing that this is possible. And it's not only possible, but you've actually done it for one of your clients. And so that's another example of a powerful story that you can share. Now, the pro tip when it comes to these client success stories, don't solely rely on these. I know I emphasized this at the beginning, but this is not your place to showboat and just share all of your amazing wins. That's not the point. The power in these client success stories is, one, showcasing that you don't just talk the talk, you can walk the walk, but also you want to bring weight to these success stories. If you're only posting about success stories, the value and the weight of each one kind of gets reduced. It starts to diminish. And so these are left solely for those primary examples of, hey, if one person could know something about my firm and some of the best stories we've had, these are the top 3 that I would want to convey, or these are the top ones that I want to showcase that shows our expertise, the ones that we are the most proud of, and the ones where our clients are our superstars. Our clients are the ones that are raving about this particular thing that we were able to do for them, because those are the ones that resonate the most, and they'll be the most powerful when they're actually shared. When it comes to compliance tips for these, as you can imagine, always get written permission, whether that be through a text message or an email. Make sure that you're not just sharing client success stories without having consulted that client first. You generally want to anonymize personal information and details. Even if your client is comfortable with it, compliance may have an issue with it. It really depends on your team and your specific scenario in terms of the regulatory restrictions you guys are dealing with and the compliance concerns that your team is worried about. So anonymize, that'll keep you all the safest as possible. And then again, never imply that what you have done for a certain client or your current client is guaranteed. Never imply that this is something that you could specifically do for someone else. Next thing is market commentary. This will be about 10% of your content mix. And essentially for this, you're going to be reacting to current news, policy changes, or market moves. You really want to stay top of mind. This will really showcase to your clients and prospective clients that you're not just outdated, you're not just in the background, you're at the front lines. You are understanding what the headlines are, essentially what your clients and general consumers will be seeing, you're at the forefront, you're at top of mind, and you are making sure that you are staying up to date to make sure that your clients get the best that they can. A couple examples of this could be implications of the Great Big Beautiful Bill for retirees. Obviously, that was a huge headline this year for several months, and a lot of changes happened. A lot of confusing questions came from it, and a lot of people were just wanting to know what to do. What does this mean for them? And so if you're able to talk to those specific points, whether that be education based or whether that be to pinpoint who might be impacted by this, who might not be, that's really important. And it'll probably give a lot of comfort to your current clients to know that their advisor is speaking to them about the current events that are happening that might impact them. Next is what high earners should know about the recent 2025 tax law changes. Last example here is potential considerations during recent market swings or news headlines. This one is really interesting. You have to be pretty nuanced here, and this is where you really need to be mindful. But obviously, when there's a lot of emotion in the market, your clients may also ride that emotional wave. And so you being the sturdy, resolute, and calm stoic advisor, potentially, if that's your energy and what your firm provides, providing comfort and a sense of, hey guys, like I know these are all the headlines, but don't necessarily take that into full consideration. This is why it may be relevant to you or may not be relevant to you. These are certain things that you should be considering and maybe reevaluate. Have that discussion with your advisor if you are concerned about certain market headlines and news. And the pro tip here is you want to share your thoughts within 72 hours. Anything after 72 hours, you're probably going to be missing the hype train. After 72 hours, it's probably already been covered at length. And so it's not necessarily necessary for you to be covering it. And again, you don't want to be using this so much. I really want to emphasize that this is really only 10% of your content mix, because you don't want to become a news channel. That's not you. That's probably not where you want your focus to be. So use it sparingly, use it when it's relevant. And specifically, I would say use your current clients. And if it's relevant to them, your current clients, as like your indicator of, okay, maybe I should cover this, maybe I shouldn't. In terms of compliance tips for market commentary, again, you don't want to be making blanket statements or market predictions. That is the last thing that you want to be doing. Next, I already mentioned it, but stay educational, balanced, and informative. That's going to provide a lot of confidence and more comfort for your clients. And lastly, again, add disclosures and recommend consulting with their advisor for their specific situation. This is always going to be the case. You'll notice in a lot of videos and just content in general, you'll see a disclosure at the end of the video or a disclosure within the captions. Next up, we have myth busting. That's also sitting around at 10%. Comes to myth busting, you're correcting common misconceptions or verifying the validity of certain questions. So examples that come to mind here are Social Security myths I hear too often. If you're an advisor, a lot of your clients are coming to you about Social Security. They say something and you're like, hold on, wait a second. Let's elaborate on that, because that may or may not actually be true for your scenario. I hear this commonly this year in particular is you can actually contribute to an IRA and a 401k in the same year. A lot of times, a lot of questions I see online, whether it be in Reddit, X, or even on video comments for short form video comments, people are confused that they think they can only do one or the other. But in a lot of scenarios, you could probably do both, and you likely should. And so that's breaking a myth. Another example here is your expenses will decrease significantly in retirement. Something in general for financial advising, you shouldn't really have any sort of blanket statements. That's generally not something you want to do unless you know for 100% sure that this is true. But for this is not entirely true. In retirement, you actually might have much higher expenses. People forget about their medical insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, things of that nature, or maybe they're spending more, or because of their RMDs, they're needing to pull more funds out, and their expenses just generally creep up with lifestyle creep. Who knows? But a statement like this is likely a myth, and you being the wonderful advisor, being able to break that down and say, you know what? It actually might not be true. You might not actually have significantly less expenses in retirement. And this is why, X, Y, and Z. So a pro tip for here is the rule of 3. So if you have been asked the same question or you've heard the same myth at least 3 times, my recommendation is make some content on it. Whether that be through an email, an image, a caption, a text post, a video post. The rule of 3 is always tried and true. If you've heard it 3 times, honestly, if you've even heard it once, generally speaking, it's worth making a video, because if someone has a question, likely other people also have a question. Showcase your expertise, provide value, provide education and understanding to your clients and your prospects. When it comes to compliance for myth busting, again, educational and fact-based only. They're looking to you for that understanding. And so if there's a myth, you want to debunk it. You want to say, okay, this is not really true, or yes, this is something that is true. And this is how it might impact you or how you might react to that. Again, you want to cite your sources. If you're busting a myth, you better have a cited source to back up why you say this is a myth or this is not a myth. And again, sticking to the government universal documentation is likely your best bet. And then lastly, you want to avoid hyperbolic headlines. Lean into the more informative perspective. This will keep your compliance team happy and more likely to approve the piece of content. Next, finally, this is our bonus 6th video format for short form video. And I would argue to say that without this, your firm may just feel a little flat, a little bland. And so I highly recommend you add this to your content mix. But again, it's only going to be a 5% allocation, and it's behind the scenes. Okay? Behind the scenes is showing your business behind the scenes, your personality, your life outside of advising. This is crucial because in this ever-growing world of AI and automations here, left and right, you want to humanize your brand. If you're only talking about business, your brand will kind of get stuck in this ocean of competitors that are all essentially saying the same things. So find a way to add your personality. The easiest way is to obviously you yourself be on camera and put a face to your firm's name so that your audience can really connect with a specific advisor with a face and feel a connection. But more so than that, show the behind the scenes, show the slightly messy aspects of the work that you do, show your hobbies and interests, your personality and your life. People really appreciate that, especially in this digital world, this AI filled world where we don't know, or it's becoming more difficult to identify what's real and what's fake. Humanize yourself. That's your differentiator. That's becoming a moat. Weirdly enough, that's becoming a moat for a lot of companies. So a couple of examples on how you could do this. One is, like I said, your hobbies, potentially your volunteering efforts and your interests. People love that. For example, say you love basketball or say you coach your son's basketball team. Amazing. Share that. Share aspects of what it's like coaching your son's basketball team, because maybe a potential client, a potential father, a potential mother really resonates with that because their son or daughter also plays basketball. And they're like, wow, we can connect on that type of level. And that gives you a stronger, deeper level of connection through video content just from sharing a little aspect of your life. Another example is maybe how you prep for a client meeting. Show the behind the scenes, the 15 minutes before you hop on a client call, what you're actually doing. Maybe you're reviewing your notes from the last time you talked with them. Maybe you did some custom research on a specific pain point that your client has brought up. Or maybe you're organizing your documents and your strategies that you looked at specifically for end of year, for your quarterly end of year meeting. Another example that is always going to be great, and I think you should just do it in general, especially just to connect and showcase more of who you are, is your origin story. I've had the pleasure of interviewing a handful of different advisors and financial service professionals, and I got to hear their origin stories, the reason on why they started advising, the reason why they got into being an accountant, the reason why they got into financial planning. And most of the time, it was because of a specific 1 to 2 experiences that really had a strong impact on them that just motivated them and inspired them to say, you know what? This is the thing that I want to do now. This is the reason why I want to help others get out of debt. The reason why I want to help others avoid these pitfalls when it comes to filing their taxes. Or this is the reason why it's so crucial to help someone else plan for their future, because often it gets overlooked and it becomes too late to get started. So your origin story is really powerful. And the pro tips here, Again, I want to say use sparingly. At the end of the day, it is a business. It's not your personal blog or, a place for you to vent. Use it sparingly and just add glimpses of who you are and who the people are in your team behind the firm to really resonate, humanize your brand, and connect with your audience. Couple of compliance tips here. Keep it professional. Avoid oversharing. Your clients, they want to connect with you, but they don't need to know every aspect of your life. Don't give compliance a reason to be concerned. Generally speaking, compliance normally doesn't have problems with this because this is your personal story. There's nothing that's a red flag as it relates to your story, but just keep in mind, don't give any reason for anyone to be concerned about something you're sharing, right? Again, gut instincts, common sense. And then lastly, avoid stretch connections or plugging your business, okay? People understand that content is content. Sometimes it's educational, sometimes it's entertainment, but you don't have to tie every piece of content to your business. For example, if we go back to your son or daughter is on a basketball team and you're the coach for it, you don't need to tie in that experience with, I coached my son or my daughter's team and it's been really great. And it just shows why it's so important to be a team. And that's why you need a team to help with your financial advising, and we can be that team. We don't need to make those stretch connections. Rather just lean in onto the personality, the humanization of your brand, and keep your business at the background when it comes to these pieces of content. You have 95% of your other content is talking about business. Let this be its own thing of your behind the scenes. Now we're going to be looking at how to actually script your content with some concrete examples, and then we'll end with the template that you guys can take, download, and use immediately. It's plug and play. How to actually script your content when it comes to creating these short form videos. So this is the standard framework that I use for my own content. It's going to be around 30 to 90 seconds. First, you're going to have a hook that's about 5 to 10 seconds, can be shorter, can be longer. Generally, I wouldn't go too much longer than 10 seconds. That first 1 to 3 seconds is crucial, but this is where you're going to grab attention with a question, a bold statement, or a specific pain point. And again, as always, you want to be compliant. The next part is the body. This is the meat and potatoes of your content, generally around 30 to 60 seconds long. And this is where you actually deliver on your hook. Now, this is really important. A lot of times people fall into the trap of creating a really great hook that really captures someone's attention, but then the rest of the video actually doesn't address that hook or doesn't fully deliver on the hook. And that breaks trust. If you're saying, hey, this is the hook, I'm going to teach you X, Y, and Z, and then you actually don't teach X, Y, and Z, trust immediately dissolved, immediately gone. You want to deliver on the thing that you caught their attention with. And here, I want to emphasize, use 1 to 3 main points to really drive home your message. Keep it simple. Again, it's really difficult, I know, especially for financial services and more of these complex financial topics, but it's 90 seconds. It's really unlikely that someone can fully grasp all of 401ks in 90 seconds, right? And so it's really important to create the hook, drive home your hook with 1 to 3 main points. And if it really does need more than one video, again, create a series, a part 1 of 6, a part 2 of 6. Don't overwhelm in one video. Don't create a short form video that actually is 5 minutes long, because then it's not a short form video unless that's your intent. Or consider creating a long form YouTube video that might be 5 to 10 minutes long that really breaks down each component. The last piece is your call to action. This will also be 5 to 10 seconds and usually has the acronym of a CTA. And this is where you're going to provide clear next steps, whether to connect or follow or do these action items or consider these steps. And not every video needs one. This is something that a lot of people also fall into the trap of. Say, for example, you're making 10 videos, posting 10 videos a month. Every single video doesn't need to tell the viewer, hey, follow, hey, subscribe, hey, do this thing, do this. It's like, sometimes content can just be content. People can consume it, internalize it, and do with it what they want. You don't always have to tell them, hey, do this thing, do this thing. People understand you're providing this content, you're sharing this video, this entertainment, this education, because you're hoping to get more viewers, hoping to get more follows, more subscribers, more business. People understand that. And so it's actually better to not have CTAs in every single video. Maybe it's every other video. Maybe it's every 4 videos, or maybe it's only for videos that are really powerful and really stand out. But again, you don't need to have every video talking 10 seconds or 30% of that video is you plugging yourself or your business. It's not necessary and could actually hurt your brand and trust in the long run. With that being said, let's actually go through some scripting templates and some examples that we can actually talk about. So first example is going to be an educational explainer. The topic is going to be direct versus indirect rollovers. And with each of these, I'll break down the hook, or a potential hook, a potential body, and a potential CTA. For the hook here, I'm saying a hypothetical scenario, and it's an educational explainer because we're breaking down direct versus indirect rollovers. It's 2 people retired on the same day, both rolled over their 401ks, but one of them got hit with a surprise tax bill. Why? And that intrigues people. It's like, oh, they did the same thing. What happened? How come one person got a tax bill, the other person didn't? And this is where your body comes in, where you contrast retiree A, who did a direct rollover, versus retiree B, who did an indirect rollover. You can go into the nuances of, maybe the employer essentially withheld a portion of that rollover for tax purposes. You have 60 days to redeposit it, but they didn't do that, and that's why the tax bill happened. This is where you use the 1 to 3 main points to really drive home on the hook on why one person had a tax bill and the other didn't. And then the last CTA, review with your advisor before taking action. Maybe in your specific scenario, an indirect rollover could make sense. More likely than not, it's probably not in your best interest, but who knows? So it's definitely important to consult with your advisor before you take action, or if you're anticipating needing to do a rollover. Example 2, we have the hypothetical scenario. Topic here we're going to cover is the cost of waiting to update beneficiaries. So for example, say a spouse passed away with $800,000 in their 401k, but they didn't have proper beneficiaries set up, so the surviving spouse might not be able to touch it. So let's say a wife passed away. She had $800,000 in her 401k, and her husband that was still living didn't have any access to it. Why'd that happen? Now, the body of it is the account was set up decades ago, and the wife set it up with her mother as the beneficiary. And so when she passed away and never updated those beneficiaries, the living spouse, the husband in this scenario, was not able to access it. And it took years or months or years of legal battle, negotiations, and stress on the whole family to really get those funds to the husband that needed it after his wife passed away. And the CTA here could be simply periodically check and update your beneficiary so you don't run into that headache. 10 minutes now could save you months of stress in the future potentially. The final example here we'll go through is a myth buster. So for this, the required minimum distribution age, the age rule, that's changed. And so the hook here is retirees still think they have to start taking RMDs at 72. And then you say the rule has changed. And then this is where you have the 3 main points of the Secure 2.0 Act updated those ages. There are also still working exceptions that may apply to you as well. And depending on your year of birth and when you were born, you may or may not need to take those RMDs at the age that you initially thought. And so the CTA here is double check your age, plan type, and your working status before taking any actions, because this could save you in the long run as well. Again, Mythbuster, stick to the facts, make sure you cite your sources, stay compliant, and really lean on the educational aspect to really build that trust with your audience. I'm actually going to show you the template that you can now use that includes these scripts as well as the plug and play template that you can just start writing your content in, the talking points that you have, and it'll be available for download. It's just a Google Doc. So let's get into it right now. And if you're curious the way you would use it, it's only view only. So when you go to click on the link, you'll hit file and then you just say make a copy. And then that'll essentially take that entire document, make a copy of it into your own Google Drive, and you can name it whatever you want, start editing it at your leisure. So these are 3 compliance approved video scripts for RIAs, essentially the 3 examples we just walked through. And this is an editable template from today's live stream. So it gives you an overview of what this document is for, how to use the document. So review the 3 example scripts, scroll to the blank template section, make a copy of this document with file and make a copy, fill in the blanks with your own content, and run scripts by your compliance team before recording. And then obviously you go ahead and record your content. What's included, part 1 is again, those 3 full compliance approved example scripts that we walk through. And, we'll showcase those, essentially the 3 that we just walked and talked through. And then part 2 is blank script template sheet for you to use and fill in. And lastly, there's a bonus compliance best practices, red and green flags that I've used that are now a part of our compliance database, so that we run all content through that before we submit to our compliance team to make sure that we have the best chance of a quick revision process, a quick review and approval process. So first up, part 1 is the example scripts. Again, educational explainer. You have the topic, the suggested video length, the hook that we discussed. The body here goes into more detail. So these are the 3 talking points that we would go over in that video. And then the CTA that we would also share at the end. There's some compliance notes here. Again, educational fact base, no you should language, encourages consulting with a professional, and it avoids specific recommendations. Example 2, same format. Again, we have this. The body is expanded so that you can actually see what talking points we might actually implement. And then there's the CTA and also custom compliance notes for that specific video topic. And then the third example here, we have the RMD age rule. As you can see, it's the same video length, same topic. Here's the hook. Here's the body with the specific points. And so, yeah, based off of the Secure 2.0 Act, if you're born between 51 and 59, your RMD start at 73. But if you're born in the 1960 or later, they actually start in 75. And on top of that, we added this exception for the percentage of owning your company and the specific rules that are associated with that, as well as your current employer. And then again, there's a CTA with compliance notes as well. Now for part 2, this is the blank template. This is essentially what you'll be using, typing it in, print it out, whatever you need, whatever works best for your processes. But here you fill in the topic, what topic you'll cover. You'll check off what type of format type this is. The video length, this is universal for a short form video, generally 30 to 90 seconds. The hook, a reminder of what the hook is. You can fill it out right here on the lines provided. The body, again, what the body is. Your point or step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 is optional. Honestly, all of them are optional. I would just at least have 1, but generally 1 to 3 is always good. Your CTA, and again, you don't need to have a CTA every single time, but you can fill that in here as well. And then a quick compliance checklist to make sure your content doesn't break any of these. So, it's a checkbox, verify that, education and fact-based, no you should language, all this. We've already went through this at length. And then finally, this is the bonus compliance best practices. This is like what you should never really include. This is what you should always include. So that's pretty much it. If you're an independent RIA and you like these systems, you like this, but you may not have the time to implement it, or you're just curious on how this might integrate and fit in with your team, your processes, your existing marketing, I invite you to book a discovery call. My website is precisiongrowthpartners.io. And then if you want to learn a lot about what we do, you can do precisiongrowthpartners.io/engage. You can book a call directly at this Calendly link. And then obviously would also love to connect with you on LinkedIn. I post content, video content twice a week, and I'll do a monthly live stream providing more value to you independent RIAs as it relates to marketing. And all the links will be in the description. But I just want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is the second live stream. I've had a lot of fun doing this, a lot of fun preparing, and I've gotten a lot of great feedback. So I appreciate you guys watching. I'm glad it's helpful. And if there's anything that I can do to improve these live streams, improve these slide decks, improve these templates that I provide for you guys, please let me know. Shoot me a message, send me an email. I would love to hear from you. And I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving holiday. Stay safe, stay you, and have a great one.